Hello, and welcome to my presentation for D2L Fusion on Demand about LMS transition and faculty involvement. Today we're going to talk about our agenda. Will be when first we'll go with when Screech meets Morris, our change management, then looking at our faculty team, some challenges and lessons learned. So I am Dr. Kari Everett. I'm an instructional technologist at Harford Community College in Bel Air, Maryland. Won't be too far from Toronto. So when Screech meets Morris, our decision to transition to Brightspace. So basically what happened in 2022, our Board of Trustees gave us the information that, hey, our contract with our current LMS was going to be coming up for renewal in 2024. So they wanted us, prior to deciding to renew that contract, get feedback from our community, our faculty, staff, and students about whether or not they wanted to keep it, or if they wanted to go through a review of all possible LMSs, which are, the big three: Blackboard, Canvas, and Brightspace. We did go through a review of all three. We received feedback from our faculty, staff, and our students about this transition. We had demos from all. We got that feedback back from them. Decision was made in the spring of 2023 to go with Brightspace. That decision was okayed by our Board of Trustees. Contract was signed. And so then contract was signed, and then we decided, those of us that we started this journey at Fusion last year in 2023 as where we started our journey. So you will see on our screen, we have Morris, our moose, and our mascot, Screech, who is an owl. And they got to meet with each other, figuratively. So you're wondering, how is change management part of this idea? Okay. Where does it go into doing an LMS transition? Well, you got to think about some ideas coming from thinking about change management. You have that planning. How's all this going to work out? Who needs to be involved? What's going to be happening with everything? Analyzing the data, looking at, where does faculty need to be involved in all of this? Part of it was having faculty on our transition team. So getting faculty volunteers to be on that team, as well as getting them to understand, how this LMS works, and having them help with teaching other faculty how to be able to use our new LMS, to use Brightspace, and to come on board and being able to look at it and seeing, how easy is it, how, intuitive it is, some of the key tools that are within Brightspace, and, what all this looks like. So getting that engagement from our faculty, making sure that we have clear communication on what our timeline is for this transition, as well as what training will be available for everyone, not just faculty, but for staff as well. And also what our communication for our students was going to look like. Having lots of training and support for our faculty and staff who are going to be using Brightspace. And this is important because they need to understand how these tools work, how, going from one LMS to the other, what are some of those differences? What are some of the same things that are the same within those LMSs, and why we're doing this. Also having, listening to the feedback that we get from our faculty and staff, um, if we need to take action with that feedback and what actions need to be taken. Um, we got feedback from our faculty when we were having division meetings that, they were looking at our schedule for the training, and they said, well, we want more lab time. We want more time to just to sit down and play with things. We changed up our schedule a bit to be able to do that. We were listening to that feedback from them. We also got feedback um, after our training sessions to see what they liked, what they didn't like, what might be, something that they wanted us to adjust, and what they may have wanted more on. Um, our transition timeline started last spring with that finalized decision for the LMS and our board of trustees signing off on the contract and saying, yes, go for it. Last summer, we went to Fusion 2023. And that was with a small group of our transition team who wanted to go out to California and have a good time and learn some new stuff about this LMS that we were starting this transition for. Coming back from Fusion later in July and for beginning of August, we met with the transition team to finalize what was going to be our navigation bar up at the top that was going to be consistent across all courses, and have a discussion on what topics are important for training. There were a variety of ones. We got the best of what we thought they needed based on that feedback from that group, and we developed the training around those topics. In the fall, we came back once everybody was back on campus. Throughout the fall semester, we met with various groups from our student affairs, our advising, met with our faculty council, as well as the various divisions on campus to keep them updated and in the loop of everything that was going on. Um, with everything that was going on um, with our timeline. We were also working with our IT department to get our single sign-on working. They were going through the process of changing the ILP, and so that was one of the things we had a little bit of I'll say a backup with getting that implemented and having that connection with Banner and Brightspace, and so we worked with them timeline wise and getting all of that worked out. All those little bumps and various meetings that we had to have. Spring of 24, um, we started off the spring in January with training, and we've done more training through via D2L, as well as some open labs. We started weekly Morris updates with Morris and Screech. We had started those prior to the spring, was just letting them know, some of the things that were going on with the LMS transition. And then spring came after that initial training we had with all of our faculty. They were getting weekly updates from Morris about some of the things they could look forward to with Brightspace and some of the things that were going on and trainings that were going on and everything they could imagine within Brightspace. Our training timeline, we basically started in January in the spring of 2024. We sat down with a core group of us and developed the 2-day event for our faculty. We also had 2 additional half days, one being a Saturday morning and one being evening hours for our adjuncts. And during those 2 days, during that 2-day event with our faculty, we had our faculty ambassadors presenting. We split our faculty up by division. So they were with people who taught some of the same subjects that they did, and they could bounce ideas off of each other and see how things would work. So with that training, we were able to have them by divisions. We had our faculty ambassadors leading those trainings. So instead of having our technical e-learning person doing that, we had that faculty doing it so that they could, and we had courses for them to be able to do this in. Um, and they went through our listing, our guide that we had for our training, so that we went through the different tools. We went through the content. We went through our assignments. We went through the quizzes, the grade book, and we showed them a few discussions and showed them a few other things. But with this, we gave them time after we would do that to play around within the system. They had sandboxes. At that point in time, we did not have any courses migrated for them, um, because that was one of the things that it was waiting to do the SIS integration, and so it got backed up. A few things got backed up because of things of the IT timeline that were beyond our control. Yes, we did get feedback from faculty that they would rather have had those courses sooner rather than later, but things out of our control, challenges, I guess you could say, they did eventually get them. They have been working with them. Which we're glad they're able to do that. We also had weekly, starting in February after these initial trainings, we also have had weekly open lab times. So basically, you think of a month, we have week one, we have it on Monday, second week, we'd have it on Tuesday, third week on Wednesday, and then Thursday. We wouldn't have any on Fridays because Fridays typically, for our college, our community college, we don't have a lot of courses. Faculty have a lot of meetings. Sometimes they have courses teaching on those days, but a lot of it is time for meetings and department meetings, division meetings, and those types of things. So we didn't want to have any open lab time on those Fridays. But we would have one on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and when at least one of those would also have an evening session. And after that first month, we got feedback because we were only having one session a day. We got feedback, well, we want some other times in there. So on the days we already had scheduled, we added a morning session to everything. So we had a session from 9 to 11 as well as a session from 1 to 3. And we had different people at all these that fit into our schedule. First probably month or two prior to spring break, not a lot of attendance. After spring break and then here in the last couple of weeks prior to our summer semester, volume's gotten a little bit higher. We also had training with the D2L trainers about various parts, different tools within Brightspace. So our faculty were able to go to those as well as be able to view the recordings afterwards. And I think this training, it got them to be able to ask questions about a variety of things that they may have came across, and questions they had that they weren't necessarily asking us yet. But allowed them to see it from a different point of view. So we have some faculty working on them, their courses continuously. Some are waiting until the fall to kind of, I guess, dive into it. Now we're into our summer session. Well, our summer courses start in a few days here, first beginning of June. And we've had open, we will have open, weekly open lab times like we've had during the spring for the month of June. Our faculty go off contract, and so we typically don't see them, after about mid-June. But we do have that open lab time for those who are still wanting to work on them. We are having a big open lab day right before our summer semester starts because summer 2024 is when we go full on with Brightspace. So all of our courses will be in Brightspace for our summer and on. Our previous LMS we won't be using. We do have our our courses will no longer be hosted in our previous LMS. So we've repeatedly reminded faculty that, if there's anything in that LMS that they want, they better download it, get it out of there, because come June 30th, we won't have access to it. And then along the same lines, for our training, we'll also be hosting various days come fall once our faculty are back, open lab times, to get them in if they need help with anything. And so this training is really important because it gives them the support. These are, support sessions where they can come and ask their questions. And many times during this spring semester when I've had open lab times, when I've been in there, I've had faculty come in with a list of questions, and we'll go through those questions and get them the answers they need to. If I don't have the answer, then I'll try to figure it out, with them sitting there next to them on my computer, and going through it. Even when I've gotten emails from faculty asking questions about different things, I'll usually sit there, be like, "Hey, what's the course?" Asking them, where is this in there? And once I have figured out what they need to do, I'll make a very short video, usually anywhere from 1 to 3 minutes, maybe 5, depending on what the question deals with, and then send them a link to that video so they can have that for reference, if it happens again. But it gives them an answer to their question rather than me having to type things out, is to show them in their course what they may need to be doing. So our faculty transition team and our ambassadors, so our transition team was faculty volunteers. Requests went out to the faculty of, who would like to be on this transition team. We got a very large group. Some of us went to Fusion last year. Our ambassadors were based on that group from the transition teams, ones we thought were good with the technology and had a good handle on it. And they were kind of their go-to person for their division. And you can see in the picture, some of us at In-N-Out when we were out in California, those of us that had went. And so our transition team, we had it from all of our divisions, as well as from our library, and we do have a Center for Teaching and Learning. So we had our director from there, who was also on this transition team. We did have one dean from our Arts and Humanities. So we had faculty from Workforce and Community Education, Behavioral and Social Sciences, our library, Arts and Humanities, STEM, our Business and Applied Technology, as well as our Nursing and Allied Health professions. This gave us a very broad view of, our faculty and a lot of input from various people. From that transition team, we got our faculty ambassadors, one from each group other than our library and CETL. We also had our e-learning team that works with our ambassadors when we did our training during our January initial, our 2-day training with our faculty. And they were the ones leading that training within different divisions. We did have packets for them to kind of follow through that allows them to see, what topics we were going through, and we had times for those sessions to allow us, breaks within there, so we're not always. It wasn't just a straight 3-hour session. We had it, hour, and we had a little 15-minute break, another hour, some 15-minute break. Fed them lunch, provided them breakfast as well. So you got to keep them fed and not make them go hungry. Keep the juices flowing so that they're always there and are working on whatever it is that they're wanting to do. Some challenges, sometimes, things just they do not go the way that you thought they would. Some challenges that we had working with IT, and that was mainly dealing with their timeline and trying to get things worked out so that everything worked the way we were hoping it would and the way it should, and based on their timeline, getting that single sign-on there were a few bumps there, and then getting the ILP set up so we could go back and forth between Banner and Brightspace, and having everybody be able to log on and see courses and see sandboxes and um, those types of things. Being able to test in our test site, which was really helpful. It was somewhat challenging to begin with because it was set up with our production banner, and we got it eventually set up with our test banner, so we could do a few things with like the grade pass back. But that was a little challenging to begin with, but we got it worked out. Faculty came back, some of the feedback we got, they wanted a demo learner, and trying to figure that one out was a little bit of a challenge, but we eventually were able to get one to where we are allow one of the permissions in there is allowing our faculty to add a demo learner to their course, so they would be able to impersonate it, um, so they could see what a student would see within the course is what they were wanting to be able to do. I don't know if it's a challenge or not, but I will say I had a lot of meetings between our technical setup with D2L. And for me, having not had a lot of meetings prior to this, I will say going into this, I was, I've used Brightspace before as a faculty member at previous institutions. Um, and I like Brightspace. I think it's very intuitive for faculty to be able to learn. But then I'm going to a lot of meetings to learn the other side, the back end of how all these various things work. Permissions, what the various types are. So it was a lot of learning for me. And it really filled up my schedule. And so some of the other projects I might have been wanting to work on kind of got put on the back burner for this last year. So it does take a lot of work. You have to be willing to do that work and to think about things and maybe in a different way. Um, I will say that's kind of one of my strengths. I do look at things from a lot of different points of views. Um, and so just getting other people to try to think about things and maybe from a student's point of view or from a faculty's, or how would they be thinking about this, it just it's a challenge sometimes. um Course migration, I will say that was probably one of our challenges because we did want to give faculty access to their courses earlier, especially from like previous um a previous year. So what we did was we took all of our courses from 2023, so winter, spring, summer, and fall of 2023, and migrated those over to Brightspace. We probably would have done it earlier, um, but there were some challenges with that, and part of it is getting all that data downloaded and into a form that we were able to upload, and then getting it um, migrated, imported, um, and everything into where it needed to be, and then in a form, and being able to get the faculty assigned to those courses. And it was work, and it did take time. And yes, faculty didn't like the time that it was taking, but it was worth it. All of those frustrations, it was really worth it in the end. um The other thing, a challenge I'll say that we ran into, it had been mentioned when we started this. People were saying, no, we can't spend any more money, but that's data backup. Um, as an educational institution, we've got to have that data backed up for what we've based on our records and registration for at least 5 years. So we had to have some way of backing up data from our previous LMS somewhere in case that our records and registration, if they needed it. So making sure you have that pushed up to the front, it might be a challenge to get people to understand why it needs to be done, but part of it is, um, it's just something that has to be done. We're getting it done now, maybe later than what we wanted to, but making sure you kind of put that in your plans. Um, and make sure that the administrators understand why this needs to be done and not be put off. Challenges. I want to say communicating was a challenge, not a big challenge, but I think trying to get people, and I think this goes from anywhere. It's getting faculty to read email, getting people to read email. But I understand those communications are important. We're not just putting that information out there for the fun of it. We're putting it out there because we know you need to know this, and we're trying to repeatedly tell you to know this information and what some of these deadlines are, things that are coming up. Knowing what when you're coming to that training, what the schedule is and why we're doing our schedule like it is, and what you're going to be getting out of it. And faculty knowing and understanding this, and what we're trying to do and why we're doing it kind of the way that we are doing it. So communicating can be a challenge, but knowing how to get it out there so people understand. And that's where we came up with the concept. We have a great communications department, and they came up with the concept of Minutes with Morris, and getting Screech, to introduce Morris to the community. So they were very helpful with that, but and they were also very helpful with what we were able to tell our students and when we started being able to do that. So they knew that this change was coming, and when they come to their summer courses, well, you're not going back to where we were. We're moving forward. We're having this change, and is a good change. Lessons learned. What, if anything, would we do differently? I will say this: ask all the questions, even if they do seem weird. Somebody's bound to have an answer. We've had a great implementation specialist with Luke. We've thrown questions at him that, if he didn't have an answer for us right then, he went and researched it or asked other people to be able to answer our questions. And there were things that we think about that we, sometimes we've been through, and we want to say, hey, we've done this. What are things that as we're going through the system we run into? And they have been, people at D2L with Brightspace have been really good about answering our questions. Try things in the test site if you can. One of the things we were curious about was how course merges were going to work. We were able to do that in our test site to see, what happens once we merge courses. What are students going to see? What are faculty going to see? How does it look within the course before we did it in our production site? Start communicating early and frequently with our faculty, with our administration, with our students. I think we've done really well with that. But I will say with our faculty and administration, sometimes we thought we were communicating, but it wasn't always getting to where it did. So making sure you have those various communication channels, whether it be email or meetings or workshops, to get faculty to know and understand what's going on, what's going to be happening, what the timelines are, and what are how things are progressing and where things are going. And with that, you may have to repeat yourself with directions and things to come, because everybody doesn't necessarily read those great emails that you've come out with, or that or attend the workshops, or go to the meetings that you have on repeat. So you're going to have to do things multiple times. And I think that happens with any transition that you have, but making sure make sure that you're communicating, and in those communications, putting out things that people need to know on repeat. I think one of the things we've repeated is when our end date is with our previous LMS, and when we're starting with D2L with Brightspace. I know we did have a few courses in our with our non-credit, with our workforce And community education start early because of their start dates and end dates. Their end dates were going to happen after that June 30th deadline. And so we're like, hey, we've got to get you started early. We're going to give you as much support as we can. And knowing that and being able to engage those people early enough to be able to set them up for success, to me, it was very important, because it's like I kept asking, all these different groups, especially because we know our non-credit isn't on the same schedule as our credit side with, our semester starts here, ends here. Their courses have start and end dates that vary throughout a term for us. So that's one of the things we were making sure that we were on top of. One of the other things, I guess, lessons learned, is about setting boundaries. And this has to partially do with the training and support. One of the things that we're kind of running into right now is with faculty, whether it be full-time or adjuncts, wanting kind of one-on-one training, but wanting training on the entire system. And it's like, no, we can't, we don't have the manpower to be able to do that. And we have all these videos and things you can go watch on your own time to get all the basics. And once you have that and you've got your courses that have been migrated, you've got your shells for your courses that are coming up in the spring and the fall, or summer in the fall, and you have directions on how to copy materials, but go through these things first. So we've had to kind of set boundaries with some of our faculty, say, hey, we need you to do some of this basic stuff first before you start asking us a lot of questions. So you have those basics down so we can, have somewhere to start with you versus just a blank slate. And setting those boundaries sometimes is hard, but they have to be set. And I think that goes, and going forward, we're able to ensure that to have that communication with them. Hey, here's our basics. We've got this training course set up for you with all the videos, with all these instructions. There's even within the Brightspace community, the instructor course that they could do there if they're wanting to, that allows them to play with stuff, as well as having those sandboxes for them within our Brightspace service. So those are some of our lessons learned. Last but not least, I'll tell you this: don't be afraid to break something in your testing site. that testing site is there for a reason. It's for you to test stuff. I played around with it, like I said, with merging courses and doing some other things. I was worried about breaking something to begin with, and I realized this isn't affecting our production. It's okay if I break something. So it's okay if I sit there and play with something, it doesn't work out like I thought it would. And that's good for me to know, because then if faculty tried to do it, I'd be like, yeah, it's not going to work that way. You might have to try this instead. And having that willingness to learn and to play is really good. Here's my contact information. If you wanted to get a hold of me, my email address, and it's supposed to be edu. I will fix this before I submit it will be fixed. So this should be edu. I forgot the D. This has been, I'll say, an adventure, and we're continuing on it because we're just starting our spring semester this June, and so come July we'll be halfway through it. I hope everybody enjoys it. Stop recording. There we go.